Hidden Valley Road, Colorado Springs. A quiet suburban street in the late 1950s, where one house stood like a monument to the American dream. 12 sons under a single roof, their father a decorated veteran, their home the picture of discipline and order. To neighbors, the family seemed untouchable, successful, admired, perfectly ordinary dot. But behind those drawn curtains, the walls carried whispers. An upstairs light burned long after midnight, as though standing guard over something no one dared name. One by one, the eldest boys began to change. Flashes of rage, hollow laughter, voices only they could hear. It was subtle at first, easy to dismiss. Yet soon the house itself became a fortress of locks, silence, and unspoken rules. What unfolded here would become one of the most haunting mysteries in modern psychiatry. A family cursed or chosen, depending on how you looked at it. A living experiment that forced science to confront the question, is madness written in blood? If you're drawn into this story already, do me a quick favor. Tap that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves deep, unsettling histories. It helps more than you know, and it makes sure you don't miss the next chapter. The Galvin House rose tall on Hidden Valley Road, a fortress of discipline in Colorado Springs. 12 sons lived under its roof, their father a decorated veteran whose authority shaped every corner of the household. To the neighbors, the family looked like perfection. A line of boys at church, their father's uniform hanging proudly near the door, meals served with precision. Order was their public image, strength their symbol. But cracks appeared behind closed doors. A light upstairs glowed long after midnight. Footsteps paced endlessly. Tempers flared without reason. The signs were small at first, but they refused to vanish. The eldest son carried the heaviest burden. He was expected to embody his father's discipline, to lead by example. Yet his laughter rang hollow. His eyes lingered on shadows. His presence unsettled the air. On the football field, he shone with talent. In church, he stood tall beside his brothers. But inside the house, moods shifted violently, rage exploding, then dissolving into charm, leaving his siblings cautious and wary. The younger boys struggled to understand. One day their brother ruffled their hair warmly. The next he stared coldly, suspiciously. The house began to breathe unease, its hallways echoing with questions no one asked aloud. The father turned to discipline. Rules, chores, sharp commands, and hunting trips. He believed structure could tame turbulence. To him, rebellion was weakness, and strength was forged through authority. Illness was not part of his vocabulary. But no command could extinguish the storm. At night, the eldest muttered strange phrases to unseen company, laughter breaking silence like shattered glass. The light beneath his door glowed like a constant challenge to order. The younger brothers adapted. They studied him closely, reading moods like weather patterns. Clear skies might bring laughter, dark clouds could bring shouting. Silent glances became warnings, survival strategies born in a household of tension. Meals were still served at 6, chairs aligned, plates polished. Rituals carried on, yet the tension thickened. The father barked orders, the eldest smiled too quickly, and younger brothers avoided speaking more than necessary. Doctors gave no answers. Psychiatry in the 1950s was crude, vague, dismissive. Growing pains, they said, just nerves. The family left each visit with questions unspoken, returning home to silence and glowing lights upstairs. Locks began to appear. Brothers carried keys, their jingling a reminder that safety was never guaranteed. Doors, once symbols of privacy, now stood as barricades. The house grew less like home, more like fortress. Still, the neighbors admired them. They saw only polished shoes, disciplined sons, and a proud father. No one guessed at the whispered warnings exchanged between brothers or the tense nights filled with footsteps. The eldest was not alone for long. Another son began pacing, another muttering. One by one, shadows spread among brothers, like fire moving silently from room to room, consuming childhood in its path. Hallways became battlegrounds. Bedrooms turned into watchposts. Younger brothers became sentinels, listening at doors, learning which spaces offered safety, which carried risk. Their lives shifted from play to strategy, from innocence to vigilance. Childhood joy thinned. Games ended abruptly, laughter cut short by sudden rage. Even sleep turned fragile. Brothers lay awake, waiting for crashes or shouts, watching light seep from under doors, praying for quiet. The upstairs light never wavered. It glowed like defiance, like warning, like a signal that something unseen held its grip. Every night it burned, reminding the family order could not banish the storm. Outside, Hidden Valley Road admired the disciplined household. Inside, 12 brothers walked carefully, led by a father clinging to rules, and shadowed by a storm no one dared name aloud. The father's presence ruled the household. A veteran molded by command and structure, he believed rules could suppress chaos. His voice was steady, his eyes unyielding, his word law. To him, order was salvation. His 12 sons felt the weight of that creed. Chores were completed without question, meals eaten on schedule, silence expected when authority spoke. Respect was demanded, and obedience was considered the only path to strength. Yet beneath the surface, silence carried a different meaning. Brothers avoided speaking of what they witnessed upstairs: strange mutters, hollow laughter, sudden violence. They learned quickly that questions invited reprimand, and fear was better swallowed whole. The eldest carried contradiction most heavily, praised when he appeared composed, punished when storms erupted. His father saw only rebellion, his brothers saw something stranger, an unshakable rhythm of moods no punishment seemed to tame. A hunting trip exposed the divide. The father lectured on discipline, steady aim, focus. But his eldest's hands trembled, his eyes distant. He handled the rifle like a burden, not a tool of mastery. Returning home, whispers passed between younger brothers. They had seen their father's disappointment and their brother's hollow stare. Two truths collided. Authority claimed control, but silence revealed cracks no discipline could patch. Meals turned into theaters of tension. The father demanded composure. The eldest sometimes smirked, other times erupted, silencing the table. The rest of the brothers ate quietly, sensing each word carried the risk of fire. They adapted with precision. Conversations became careful, measured. Warnings were exchanged through glances. Silence became its own language. Signals between brothers designed to avoid the father's wrath and the eldest's unpredictable eruptions. The father doubled down. His solution was always stricter rules, louder commands, harsher punishments. To him, discipline corrected weakness. But no order softened the chaos. His eldest slipped further, and silence deepened around them. Nightly, the father confronted the glowing light. He demanded his son extinguish it, rest, obey. Yet the muttering continued, the pacing resumed. The door shut, and the light shone defiantly, mocking his authority. Brothers noticed their father's unease. He, once unshakable, hesitated before the door. They exchanged looks silently, realizing for the first time their father could not command everything. His rules had meant something beyond command. To the father, silence was respect. To his sons, silence was survival. They kept their questions locked, their fears hidden. The gulf widened between discipline enforced and the truth left unspoken. At church, they still looked perfect. 12 boys in a row, their father upright, stoic. Yet beneath polished shoes and stiff collars, silence pressed heavily, every brother rehearsing composure with careful precision. One evening, a rupture came. The father shouted, demanding obedience. The eldest laughed, loud, hollow, defiant. For the first time, authority broke. The father stood frozen, stripped of command in his own household. The brothers felt shock ripple through them. They had never seen him falter. Fear mixed with pity, loyalty with doubt. Silence fell heavy across the table, more suffocating than any shout, but the father would not relent. He tightened his grip, doubled punishments, added more chores, demanded stricter obedience. He believed force could restore control, though each rule only widened the distance between him and his sons. The brothers learned to live with two realities. Outwardly, rules defined their lives. Inwardly, silence defined their survival. Love endured, but it was reshaped into watchfulness, their brotherhood sealed by things left unsaid. Hidden Valley Road still admired the disciplined family, but inside, 12 brothers walked carefully under the shadow of a father's rules and an eldest son's silence. Two forces locked in endless, uneasy collision. The upstairs light glowed each night, a stubborn beacon against the darkness. Neighbors dismissed it as late studying, but inside every brother knew it as a sentinel, watching, warning, refusing to rest when they could not. They whispered about it in hushed voices. Some avoided the stairwell altogether. Others lingered at the bottom, listening for mutters or footsteps. The glow became part of their rhythm, as expected as morning itself. To one brother, it felt like a lighthouse, but instead of guiding safety, it signaled danger. Whenever the light stayed on too long, the house braced for shouts or shattered objects before dawn. The father called it disobedience. He demanded darkness, commanded rest. Yet each night, the bulb returned, steady and defiant. Rules could not snuff it out. His orders echoed, but the glow outlasted him. Soon other rooms joined the night watch. Another brother paced endlessly, muttering under his breath. Another stared at shadows. The house became a constellation of unrest, each light marking another mind sliding into turbulence. Locks multiplied. Bedroom doors, cabinets, even windows. Brothers carried heavy rings of keys, their metal clinking like weapons of defense. The once open house turned labyrinth, every doorway a boundary between calm and eruption. Childhood was reshaped into strategy. Warnings were subtle. A hand brushing the stair rail, a glance across the hall, a pause before opening a door. Innocence gave way to survival instincts sharpened daily. Silence fused with vigilance. Brothers tiptoed through hallways, listening for pacing above or mutters through walls. They learned to sense danger in the smallest creaks, transforming every step into a calculated risk. Games ended quickly, laughter cut short. A slammed door upstairs froze conversations. Even meals became rehearsed performances, moments of peace hanging by threads, shattered by sudden glares or mutters from restless brothers. The sentinel light was more than illumination. It was a symbol. It burned as proof that unrest never slept. Each night it reminded them safety was temporary, order fragile, and silence their only defense. The father grew more withdrawn. His rules no longer bent the house to his will. The light mocked his authority, and so he retreated to fishing trips, tools, and the comfort of solitude. The eldest protector among the brothers took up responsibility quietly. He checked doors, whispered warnings, calmed younger siblings. His shoulders bore a weight unseen by neighbors, a burden he carried without recognition. Police cars came sometimes, their lights flashing at the end of the driveway. Neighbors peered through curtains, curious but silent. Inside, the family returned quickly to their fortress, rearranging silence after every storm. At school, rumors spread. Classmates whispered of fights, patrol cars, and strange behavior. The brothers denied it all, their shame as constant as the sentinel light waiting each night to betray them. Younger brothers grew into guardians, forced into vigilance too early. They loved fiercely, even when frightened. Loyalty and fear twisted together. Their bond became forged in secrecy, every glance a promise of endurance. Still, the storm spread. One after another, brothers fell to the same restless pacing, the same hollow laughter, the same refusal to extinguish their lights. The constellation above the house grew brighter. The fortress became suffocating. Locked doors, silent warnings, and watchful lights left little room for peace. Each night, the brothers lay awake, waiting, listening, staring at ceilings as shadows crept across their walls. Outside, Hidden Valley Road still admired the family. But inside, 12 brothers lived under the glow of sentinel lights, knowing each bulb was both a warning and a prophecy of storms to come. Silence became the household's most powerful rule. It was not commanded aloud, but carried in glances, in clenched jaws, in the understanding that words could ignite tempers or expose weakness. Silence was both shield and prison. The father framed silence as respect. To him, discipline demanded composure, and composure demanded restraint. He believed quiet was strength, a soldier's armor against disorder. But his sons knew silence meant something else entirely. The eldest protector enforced it among brothers. He hushed questions, shook his head when whispers grew too loud. He knew one careless word could unravel the fragile balance their father clung to desperately. The house itself reflected silence. Furniture shifted after eruptions, locks appeared, rules were taped to doors. The home's architecture bent to crisis. Brothers memorized patterns like maps, safe rooms, dangerous hallways, hidden places to wait. At meals, silence was heaviest. Forks clinked, eyes dropped, laughter rare. A sudden glare could stop conversation cold. The father mistook obedience for peace, unaware his sons feared speaking more than they feared punishment. The younger brothers carried their secrets together. They whispered in the dark, careful never to be overheard. Their whispered truths, warnings, fears, small jokes were acts of rebellion against the silence demanded by authority. The father, once a towering figure, withdrew further. He busied himself outdoors with rifles, fishing rods, tools. His quiet grew heavier, his absences longer, as though even he could not live beneath the fortress he built. The eldest protector tried to fill the void. He issued quiet orders, assigned tasks, and calmed younger siblings. His authority came not from discipline, but from survival instinct, though it cost him dearly. Resentment brewed among the healthy brothers. They loved fiercely, but exhaustion hollowed them. Their youth slipped away under constant vigilance. Silence bound them, but it also smothered dreams they barely dared to imagine. Outside, friendships dissolved. Invitations declined, neighbors distant. Rumors filled the gaps where truth could not escape. To classmates, the brothers smiled stiffly. To neighbors, they waved politely. The fortress held, its walls lined with secrecy. Inside, the silence became suffocating. Brothers exchanged glances in place of words, gestures carrying meanings too dangerous to say aloud. Their lives became coded, their brotherhood forged from unspoken signals instead of free laughter. Even small joys cracked beneath the weight. A baseball tossed in the yard might be abandoned mid-game. A joke told at the table could die in silence, replaced by sudden, chilling stillness. Doctors failed them. Explanations were shallow, dismissing symptoms as stress or growing pains. Science had no language yet for the storms inside the house. Their silence grew heavier as hope for answers shrank. At church, they looked orderly, lined up in their pew. To outsiders, they were disciplined sons under a proud father. Only the brothers knew their silence was not composure, but a cage. The fortress grew oppressive. Locks, rules, charts, and unspoken laws left little room for joy. Silence guarded them, but it also imprisoned them, ensuring every bond was shaped by what could never be said. The eldest protector carried guilt. He wondered if he had silenced his brothers too harshly. Yet he knew survival demanded it. To speak freely was to risk collapse. To endure meant staying quiet. The father never abandoned silence. He clung to it until it defined him, until it became the only authority left. His sons, meanwhile, endured it not as discipline but as suffocating necessity. From the street, the family appeared unshakable. But within, 12 brothers lived inside a fortress of silence, bound together by loyalty, divided by fear, and reshaped daily by the rules of quiet survival. The family's name first appeared in hospital records. One son admitted for violent outbursts, another for muttered voices only he could hear. Doctors noticed the repetition. Too many cases linked back to one household address. The surname returned again and again in files. Reports piled high, impossible to ignore. One family producing multiple sons with identical unravelings, an anomaly that made psychiatrists pause, curious and unsettled in equal measure. In the 1960s, psychiatry was fractured. Some experts blamed harsh fathers, others whispered about heredity. The Galvin brothers became evidence in a fierce debate, their lives transformed into symbols of theory rather than survival. Blood was drawn, vials carefully labeled, manila folders thickened with interviews, notes, observations. For researchers, the Galvin home became a rare laboratory. Private anguish turned public data, tragedy reframed as opportunity for science to explore. The father signed reluctantly, pride at war with intrusion. He insisted his house was disciplined, not broken. His eldest protector signed too, hoping answers might come, or at least meaning to justify their suffering. The brothers became subjects. Questions cut deep. Interviews probed what they long hid. Some answered in fragments, others sat in silence. Each response became data, stripped of the fear and loyalty behind it. Researchers argued among themselves. Was it family dynamics, stress, or something older buried in bloodlines? The Galvin case reflected psychiatry's uncertainty, a mirror of clashing theories still blind to the reality of lived experience. For the family, being studied changed everything. They were no longer simply brothers. They were specimens, a phenomenon. Strangers carried away pieces of them, while the storms at home raged on unchanged. Still, hope flickered. Perhaps their suffering might help others. Perhaps science could unravel the curse. Even if relief never came for them, maybe another family would be spared by what their blood revealed. Conferences cited them by surname alone. Charts and graphs bore their legacy. Doctors spoke clinically of inheritance patterns, but none of those diagrams captured sentinel lights glowing or whispered warnings traded among siblings. To scientists, they represented possibility. To themselves, they were boys navigating fear, watching brothers unravel, surviving inside silence. The gulf between what was measured and what was lived grew wider with each passing study. Ethical doubts lingered. Could discovery justify exploitation? Each vial represented more than genetics. It carried sleepless nights, bruises hidden, trust eroded. Progress in labs rested on the cost of lives lived under relentless storms. The healthy brothers felt paranoia grow. If blood determined fate, were they doomed? Each interview hinted at inevitability. They carried questions like shadows. Would madness claim them too? Was silence just the beginning? The father despised the researchers. Their questions felt like judgment. Each clipboard seemed to strip away his authority further. His fortress of rules already failed. Now strangers picked through its ruins without respect. The eldest protector placed more faith in the process. Though exhausted, he believed cooperation might one day make sense of their suffering. But the waiting was endless, and hope often felt like another burden. Still, folders grew thicker. Blood samples multiplied, stored in freezers across universities. Their surnames spread quietly among specialists, whispered as a case of legend. Hidden Valley Road became a landmark for science, not secrecy. To researchers, they were evidence. To each other, they remained brothers, guarding, enduring, and surviving in silence. Science gained insight, but insight never quieted footsteps or extinguished sentinel lights still burning every night. By decade's end, the family lived two parallel lives. In journals, They were discovery. In their house, they were survivors. And between the two worlds stretched silence, carrying the heavy cost of both. The household fractured into factions. Some brothers remained steady, shouldering responsibility as protectors. Others unraveled, consumed by voices and suspicion. Love still bound them, but it was love hardened into vigilance, duty, and painful sacrifice. Every day carried battles. One brother paced endlessly, muttering about unseen threats. Another erupted suddenly, fists slamming walls. Protectors moved quickly, stepping between danger and safety, living like sentinels in a war without name. Meals became battlegrounds. Conversations froze at the sound of pacing. Plates overturned. Arguments erupted. Yet once chaos passed, silence fell again, as though all agreed not to speak of what had shattered peace. Younger brothers sharpened instincts. They predicted moods, tracked footsteps, created unspoken codes. A raised eyebrow might mean retreat. A hand on the shoulder signaled, "Stand ready." Childhood dissolved into tactics and constant alertness. The father's authority eroded further. Once unchallenged, he now seemed powerless against forces his rules could not command. His silence deepened, his presence shrinking, as if acknowledging discipline had lost its grip. The eldest protector filled the vacuum. He organized, mediated, comforted. His role resembled command, though without recognition. His strength was tested daily, loyalty stretched thin, his body carrying exhaustion like armor. Resentment simmered. Protectors sacrificed friendships, ambitions, and freedom. Their lives narrowed to vigilance. They loved their brothers, but also resented the endless weight. Loyalty and fatigue clashed inside them, leaving scars that never healed. Arguments erupted not only with sick brothers, but with their father. Protectors begged for acknowledgement, for help. The father responded with stricter rules, blaming weakness, demanding silence. The fortress cracked further under pressure. Trust fractured too. A protector once struck by the brother he defended carried wounds deeper than bruises. Loyalty survived, but fear lingered. Every embrace carried doubt. Every act of love sharpened by risk. Even joy became fragile. A laugh could collapse into rage within minutes. Brothers distrusted happiness, convinced calm was only the prelude to chaos. Suspicion shadowed every smile, every fleeting moment of peace. Outsiders sensed fragments, rumors at school, whispers in pews, police visits in the night. But inside, the war was total. Every hallway was contested ground. Every day, an uneasy ceasefire waiting to collapse. Yet protectors did not abandon their posts. Love demanded endurance even when fear grew sharp. Their loyalty was not commanded by rules, but etched into them by blood, forged through fire they could not escape. That fire scarred them. Some withdrew into silence, refusing to hope. Others lashed out at their father, furious at the futility of discipline. Anger at illness mixed with anger at a life stolen. Collapses marked turning points. A shattered door, a police siren, a night of uncontrollable violence, each reminder that no rule could restore peace. Afterward, the house reset again, rearranging furniture and routines like battlefield strategy. The protectors felt invisible. Researchers studied their brother's blood, ignoring the toll on those who stayed steady. Their sacrifices were unseen, their exhaustion dismissed. Science measured symptoms, but missed the cost of survival. Still, resilience endured. Through whispers, glances, and unspoken codes, protectors found solidarity. They reminded each other of loyalty, even when hollowed by fear. Their bond was fragile, yet it was the only constant. The war never paused. It was fought without weapons, marked by silence instead of declarations. Each brother carried scars invisible to outsiders, each protector carrying the knowledge love itself demanded unending endurance. Hidden Valley Road remained admired by neighbors. But within, the brothers waged their war quietly, protectors and lost alike locked in endless conflict, their legacy written in scars rather than victories. By the 1970s, psychiatry turned its attention deeper. Old theories blaming fathers or family discipline began to fade. Researchers increasingly suspected madness was inherited, written into bloodlines like invisible instructions passed from father to son. The Galvin brothers stood at the center of this shift. 6 unraveling in one household was unparalleled. Their blood became priceless evidence, preserved in freezers, studied repeatedly, silent witnesses to both tragedy and progress. Early genetic studies were blunt tools. Scientists scanned chromosomes for patterns, searching for fault lines in heredity. Even crude findings pointed toward possibility. The Galvin case whispered of a blueprint, fragile but undeniable. Researchers mapped the family tree meticulously, sick brothers marked in dark ink, healthy brothers in lighter strokes. The diagram looked orderly, but behind it lay chaos, years of silence, locks, and shattered dinners. The father detested reduction into diagrams. His authority, his rules, his discipline could not be graphed. Yet his son's blood traveled beyond Hidden Valley Road, reshaping psychiatric debates far from the fortress he had built. The eldest protector read reports cautiously. He wondered if meaning could grow from suffering. Perhaps their endurance was not wasted, perhaps their vigilance spared others. But graphs offered little comfort when sentinel lights still glowed. Technology sharpened in the 1980s. Linkage studies emerged, tracking traits across generations. The brothers' samples were revisited again, each new machine peeling further into the mystery. Hidden Valley Road became reference point for countless debates. Findings revealed complexity. No single gene dictated fate. Instead, clusters of variations combined with stress and chance. Madness was no assassin. It was a conspiracy of vulnerabilities, striking where resilience faltered, unpredictable yet relentless. The healthy brothers listened uneasily. If blood carried such weight, what about them? Were they marked, too? Each passing year without symptoms felt like borrowed time, each birthday another gamble with fate. Conferences cited their case by surname alone. Specialists debated probabilities in sterile halls. Yet at home, locks still clicked, silence still suffocated, and protectors still whispered warnings. Science advanced, but their nights remained unchanged. By the 1990s, sequencing grew precise. The Human Genome Project promised answers. Once again, their blood was thawed, analyzed, reframed. The brothers were transformed into evidence, their names etched into psychiatry's unspoken canon. No single discovery explained everything. Instead, hundreds of markers surfaced, each nudging risk upward. Revelation was cruel. It gave meaning to their suffering while confirming it could not be undone. Legacy carried triumph and despair. The protectors wrestled with this truth. Science saw their brothers as opportunity, but they knew them as boys who laughed, raged, and whispered. Humanity was stripped away each time their surname appeared in journals. Psychiatry shifted nonetheless. Families were no longer blamed outright. Researchers acknowledged heredity's role, balancing it with environment. Stigma weakened slowly, compassion grew. Yet inside their fortress, compassion often drowned beneath the grind of survival. The father ignored scientific debates, preferring silence and his hobbies. The eldest protector leaned into meaning, clinging to hope their suffering had purpose. Between them, a gulf widened. Pride on one side, exhaustion on the other. Science could not capture their lives. Charts revealed probability, but not sleepless vigils, whispered codes, or meals eaten in fear. Blood carried blueprints, but the cost was written only in the protector's endurance. Still, progress mattered. The Galvins became pivotal proof that madness was not weakness, but biology. Their suffering dismantled blame, offering future families a softer judgment. Their cost was immense, their contribution undeniable. Bloodlines carried risk, but not certainty. chance, resilience, and loyalty still mattered. The Galvin brothers proved heredity's reach, but also survival's strength, a legacy etched in both science and silence, written in blood and in brotherhood. The house on Hidden Valley Road stands quiet now. Its walls no longer echo with mutters or pacing, yet memory lingers. Every corner carries the imprint of 12 brothers who lived under its relentless weight. To outsiders, the family once appeared enviable. A proud father, disciplined sons lined in pews, a household of order. Neighbors admired their composure, never glimpsing the shadows flickering behind drawn curtains each night. Science preserved their legacy. Blood samples stored for decades became artifacts, analyzed in laboratories across the world. Their suffering was immortalized in data, their story whispered as a landmark case in psychiatric history. Progress came, but not for them. While researchers debated chromosomes and probabilities, the brothers endured sleepless nights, shattered trust, and silence that suffocated. No discovery erased the pain etched into their daily lives. The father retreated into solitude, his pride fractured, his rules defeated by forces beyond command. His silence was his final armor, though it could not shield him from the truth that discipline had failed. The eldest protector bore scars unseen. Years of vigilance hollowed him, yet his loyalty never wavered. His quiet endurance became the house's hidden pillar. Though it left him weary, his own dreams sacrificed. Legacy proved double-edged. The brothers' suffering helped transform psychiatry, shifting blame from families toward biology. Yet the cost was staggering. Lives unraveled, futures stolen, and an unending silence that haunted those who managed to survive. Some brothers found fragments of peace, building lives away from the fortress. Others were lost completely, consumed by illness. Their absences became permanent shadows, reminders of how survival rarely meant wholeness. The house itself bore the marks. Locks scarred the doors, hinges worn by barricades, floors etched by restless pacing. Its architecture remembered, even when voices fell silent. Memory was carved into its bones. Science still advances, decoding risks and mapping vulnerabilities. Yet no study captures the exhaustion of whispered codes, the weight of being a protector, or the hollow silence that filled the brothers' childhoods. For psychiatry, the family proved illness was biology, not weakness. For humanity, their story revealed how resilience grows in silence, how loyalty survives storms, and how brotherhood endures even under unbearable strain. Their contribution bred compassion. Doctors hesitated before blaming families, more willing to see illness as illness. The Galvins carried stigma so others could find recognition. Their suffering turned into a lantern for strangers. The haunted house is still, but its story burns on. In textbooks, laboratories, and whispered testimonies, the brothers' endurance lives. Their blood reshaped medicine, though their silence was the price of progress. The protectors' voices matter most now. They speak not of charts or chromosomes, but of vigilance, love, and exhaustion. Their testimony ensures their brothers are remembered as men, not merely specimens. Hidden Valley Road has become legend, but its lessons remain. Behind each diagnosis lies a household of silent battles. Behind each blood sample, a story of survival, loyalty, and costs too heavy to measure. The legacy is complex. It is tragedy entwined with revelation, silence bound with discovery. It asks a question science cannot answer. What price should a family pay for progress that benefits the world? No resolution erases what was endured. The brothers' sacrifices cannot be undone. What remains is resilience, unspoken loyalty that carried them through, proving survival itself can become a legacy when hope seems impossible. The haunted house no longer glows with sentinel lights. Yet its story endures, etched in memory, in science, and in brotherhood. A reminder that madness may run in blood, but resilience runs deeper still.